Okay, Zug the Mechaber Yudalad, up to Siman Yudalad. This Siman is a very important Siman in Halacha, because this Siman always is abused, not used, but abused. What I mean to say is very often the Dayanim, the Jewish lawyers, try to use this when a guy doesn't want to come to Din Torah. So they always try to use tactics, how to get out of it. So I'm literally dealing with two cases in the community.
Maybe we shouldn't record this.
Oh, yeah. No, because the Ta'anim, they learn this, but they're wrong. So they will probably come out of Sirv against someone who the Dayanim is misleading him, because we don't care who the Dayanim is, because you don't show up. So again, Zug the Mechaber, Shnayim, beginning of Shnayim shemis atzmi bedin. They're having a dispute in a din. What is the dispute? Ze'oy menidin kan. Let's have the din Torah here. Ze'oy nel bezdin hagudel. Let's go to the bezdin hagudel. So, first of all, is there such a thing, a bezdin hagudel? Today, honestly, there is. Pi halacha, there is. There are people who know Chosh Mishpat very well, and the local rabbis don't. That's a fact. Can't deny it. There are people who designated the whole life. I always give a mishum chayin leharua, where people literally took 10 years to learn Chosh Mishpat day in and day out, and really know it. But we're still going to see how that it wasn't accepted, because it wasn't always practical. We're still going to see. But theoretically speaking, there's such a thing. A guy says, I want to go to this Din Torah. A guy says, I want to go to another. Lahavdil, I asked a lawyer many years ago, and he told me there is rules and regulation. The court system also that way. If you are from one state to another state, and I sue you, who has the right to sue and what, and there's whole rules and regulations where the business was done. Can you go to this court? Cannot go. I don't know the laws, but has to be. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos. The problem is not that there is no Bezdin HaGudel. The biggest problem is that everyone thinks that his Rav is the Gudel. That is always the problem. And my Rabbi is the Gudel, or my happen to be a Chabad Rabbi, then he must be the biggest. That is the problem. But fortunate, it comes to Torah, most people would agree. I don't think I had to disagree that in the renowned Butadinim are known to be. But later learn, it's a long count. I will go over the details, but the end result is the meaning in Europe was that we didn't allow someone to claim this, because this was a ploy how not to go to the Torah. So if you would see today, it's not such a ploy, but still it's easy to go. In the good old days, it was very difficult to go. Siman Yudalad. Siman Yudalad. What's page Yudzayin? So, but things don't change, even though nowadays you could demand such a thing, but things don't change. I want to say something, but someone told me, I have to check this out. I don't know if it's true, but someone told me, what's Rabbi Shochet? Is he a son from that Rabbi Shochet from Toronto? Who comes here? This young man.
He's from another one from
Toronto. Another one. So someone told me that the Rav over there, someone, a Chabad guy, told me that he did it in Torah on Skype. I was a little bit shocked. I mean, you can do it. Both agree is never a problem. Two people agree, it's not a problem. That's the
That guy wanted to get out of it.
Whatever, they both agree. They both agree.
Put it in front of me. Go on Skype.
If they agree, but I understood. No, he thinks it wasn't. I don't know. People, when I notice people say stories, not always it's accurate. Even those guys are off. But Kapunim, originally the minig was that you had to go to the local bezdin, because this was a big ploy. Question is nowadays, but things don't change with the minig. So really, if a person lives, two people, this is one of the ploy guys doing. They're both living here and he's planning. I want to go to that bezdin. No, it's accepted that he has to go to local bezdin and he has to choose. There's no bezdin, you have to choose one. Otherwise, they put a sirv. Finished. They put a dish in the sirv. Okay. So he says again, Let's move on. Ner Bezna Gudel Koifen Oisoi V'don Be'iroi. He can't go to Bezna Gudel. He has to down over here. We have Uman. Okay, we'll later learn the dinam when the mechaber is first. I say mekatzer short, and then he elaborates. First, the mechaber says you cannot demand that. Everyone has to be over here. This happens very often. Guy says, okay, you don't want to go to Bezdin Agudel. I want the Bezdin should write what's the reason they paskin. He says, Shem b'ti'isem, maybe made him take kosten, v'nosten loy, v'achkech b'tzim meni. Then they take it. Now, the local Bezdin is very, very threatened. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think they write into it that you don't have a demand. Sure, they write in that you don't have to write that, but if you go to Bezdin and you say, I've told people, go to Bezdin, I'm willing to come, but you have to write down why you paskin. We'll later learn. You don't have to explain which shach you took it from, and which you write down what is my tfiyah. I say tfiyah, my complaint, and what is the other guy answering the complaint. And write the psak that I should give it to the other butadinim, and they should see if you judged well.
And if they didn't, what about like?
So then, when they didn't, they have to. The Bezdin has to be honest. So I said a few weeks ago, there's a tshuva sarash. But this will happen. A Bezdin, amazing. To me, it's amazing how it wasn't. The Bezdin made a terrible mistake about dividing a courtyard. It's a Ferish Gemara. And the Rosh said the Bezdin has to retract. You say in English, has to, and it's a mistake. Is a mistake. So a guy has a right this much. Okay, you want me? I'm going to go to the local Bezdin, but I'm demanding that you should write down what was the tfiyah. Tfiyah means what was my complaint. What the guy answered, and you psak. Let me show to other Rabbanim. Now this is very important to know something. I want to tell you something very, very. That is only where there's a question in Choshen Mishpat. If it's a question of Shuda the Daina, I don't know how to translate Shuda the Daina well in English, which means an evaluation. There's nothing. It's not a question. What do you say? Discretion. It's like the big problem always is, parents get divorced. Who should have the children? Who should pay? To divide the children. So this is nothing. This is nothing to do with halacha. This is a discretion. There's no question that every three people are going to see it differently. Especially when it's psychological involved. Every person is going to translate it and look at it with a different eye, understand it differently. You cannot change that. It's a very important halacha because
people demand heichen down 20 and such.
Yeah, there's not heichen down 20 because
You can't interpret such a thing? Sure.
people. One of the biggest fights in New York it amazes me. The biggest fights in New York that I know about, was never about the money. If Bezdin paskind, no Rosh Yeshiva mixed in, no one mixed in, the paskind wrong. Yeah, but besides here. You want to just turn off? Besides, I don't know the details. I know they asked me, but one of the Dayanim wanted to change his mind. Anyway, there's such a thing. But see, monetary things, Bezdin could say they made a mistake if they're honest. But if it's not a money, or it's something very often Bezdin cannot prove. I'm involved in a very difficult in Torah. We don't understand what happened there. I don't think the parties understood what happened. Nothing was written down, and it's years later, 10 years later, and don't remember how the contract was. It's very complicated. That is also, there's nothing to argue, because that psak is going to be depending how Bezdin sees what makes sense. But it's something that is a question in halacha, then we could go back and see. Does it say Shulchan Aruch or doesn't say Shulchan Aruch? You understand? Does he have a right in the man? He doesn't have a right.
What happens if you have, like you mentioned, between Chabad or non-Chabad or Sephardi, Ashkenaz, and the Mechaber goes one way?
Dina Moman is there's no such thing as Mechaber and Ramo. There's no such a thing. Let me explain what he's saying. But I've been asked this question all the time. Sfardim ask me the question. That, Sfardi has a din Torah with Ashkenazi. So they're always nervous, you're going to go to Ashkenaz Bezdin, and you're going to, there's no such a thing. And Choshen Mishpat has nothing to do, it's Mechaber and the Remo. It has to do with the majority of the Chreinim, even according to the Ashkenazim, according to the Sfardim. And it's just a Kimli, when you don't say Kimli, it's a bit not so simple, but nothing to do. It happens to be, in Choshen Mishpat, after the Mechaber, everything was Ashkenazim. Nothing, there was no, even Yerideo. It's one of the most interesting things in history which we don't understand. After the Mechaber, everything is Ashkenazim. The Shach, Taz, Mugavruam, Pri Megudam, Shechon Ucharav, Chai Udam. There's very little written by the Sfardim. In Choshen Mishpat, nothing written by the Sfardim. Interesting historical fact.
Do it case by case?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Sfardim and Ashkenazim. It has to do with the Pesach and Shulchan Aruch. Nothing to do. So if a Sfardi has the Torah, he could, by what's his name, in Ebenezer, that could be a problem. Because in Ebenezer, the Sfardi Shirbonim have to know what the Ashkenazim and Hogim is, and the Ashkenazim have to know the Sfardi Shirim in Hogim. Because in Hilchas Ksubah, there's total, there are big machlekes between them, how to, Sfardim hold Ksubah is a Deraisa. We Ashkenazim hold Ksubah is a Derbanan. I don't know if you know that. It's a Machlek Shem Chaber Deremo. We don't write Deraisa Ksubah Deraisa. We write Derbanan. And there's a Machlekes, when can you make, Sfardim don't need a het to make a Banam. So when can you tell a Sfardi, you can go and get married to another person? You know what I mean? So it's a whole different, the rules are different. Usually in the Sfardish community, a woman takes a get much quicker because he could get married much, much quicker. Doesn't have the headache.
According to what you said, someone which is not a clear-cut monetary Choshen Mishpat style, you can't force him with what is in Torah. If I can't argue Shum Daina, why should I go to Rav if I think the way his outlook on the world is going to lean towards the other guy?
No. How do you know? How do you know what the guy's going to link? What makes you think so? You never know. It's not Shuda. Shuda means not, Shuda doesn't mean how he looks at things. I give you, the best marshal is practical, not forgetting the Chabad story, is a divorce. Is the mother fit to have all children? I said it in Torah. We all felt that the mother's not fit. Boy, did we get phone calls. And so I told the Rav, you were here? Did you hear to both sides? Did you hear the psychologist speak? Well, what are you calling me long distance? I love this. Shiva calls me. I once even had a Chabad rabbi call me. I don't want to say the name. He told me he's a Dayanim in Crown Heights. I said, I don't understand. We sat hours long hearing the case. It was a divorce case, and we wanted he says, how come you passing this way? I explained to him. He backed off. It's a shit of the Dayanim. We heard what the therapist said. We heard what they said, and we held the mother was not fit to have all the children. The therapist himself, her therapist said it. It wasn't even. He wasn't even a third party. She's not fit. She's not fit. Unfortunately, very often they're on to court if they don't like it. Unfortunately.
You don't make them sign beforehand?
Yeah, but the problem by a divorce is that the court system says you have no right to sign over your children's rights. Mm-hmm. So they say we have a right to look into it. And not only that, they don't allow it anymore because the judges don't have time. You could go back to court again and again, because it used to be today they don't allow it because there's no much. The judges have no time. But you went to one judge, so it finds an excuse why to go to another judge, and later, a few years later, and say things change, and they don't allow it so quickly anymore because not because it's not true. It's just the court system is so clogged up. But coming back, lamaisa. That's what people do. They don't like it, they run to court. See, monetary things, the judge, they throw it out, but, children, they don't want to, they look at it. They look at it if judge looks at it, if you did a thorough investigation, mainly if you had that's why we took a therapist. We were told if you have a therapist and who gives the rights so then they would not listen, they respect it. It wasn't just you heard it in the court. But I want to say something that children, many people don't understand this. Children are not objects. And you don't own your child. It's not yours. When people have a hard time, it's not yours when they fight. It's not your child. The Moshe gave you the privilege to raise them. It's not yours. It's not a chayfetz. It's not an object. So we're going to fight over it. It's mine or yours. Bezdin has to decide who is the best parent to raise it. That's it. See, over there, there's also machaber in the Sfardim Ashkenazim, but I was told in Eretz Yisrael, even the Sfardim machaber says it goes the boys to the father and the girls to the mother. But the Ramuz says no. But I was told in Eretz Yisrael, the Rabbanut for the Sfardim also follow. They listen to the case and they don't do like the machaber says anymore.
What if it's they differ on education? How do you decide then what's more?
Yes, the Bezdin has to. The Bezdin has to.
They were married also.
Yeah, but the Bezdin has to. All of a sudden, you know what it is. All of a sudden, getting divorced, he's not fit to be a parent. You know that. Married. I sat in the case. They're married 17 years, and everything was nice. And then all of a sudden, one of them had an affair. He became unfit. He's a molester, and who knows what. But it doesn't. Bezdin has to say. Usually, they tell the one who raises the child. He or she has the full decision which school to go to. Now, this would happen in the story with the rabbi coming from Crown Heights, because she was not going to send to Chabad. She sent to Teres Emes. And he was, I said, what should we do? She's, the mother's not a Chabad, and she wants to send the child to Teres Emes. And
What if they want to send the child to
public school.
Yeah.
It's nothing. Bezdin knows ahead of time wouldn't allow give the children there. She's not religious. But
what's that got to do with the health of? How does that make the mother unfit because she chooses a non-Jewish education?
Well, it's not the question who's more fit. Not if a guy is crazy, we would never give a child over to the person. Guy's nuts, we never do it. But the question is always who's more fit. They always scream them. Each one screams which they're more fit. So then, if you know the person's not religious, why should you bring the children down? Why should you have them the children?
That's religion. You're still based on religion.
That's for sure. That's for sure. That's true.
All things being equal, a religious parent gets a child over the non-religious.
Right. But if the parent is nuts, which I once was involved, I said, don't give the. I wasn't sitting in the Bezdin. The mother was in a mental institution a few times. I said, even though the father's not religious anymore, you can't give the children to the mother. I mean, the courts wouldn't allow it. I said, it's ridiculous. He's going to go to court. She was institutionalized. But I'm talking about, he just said, all things fit. The question is more fit and this fit. And
in this case, the Sephardim don't act like the Mechaber.
Right. And I was told.
So on what are they based?
The Bezdin listens to who's a better fit parent, what's best for the child.
How do they change the ruling from the Mechaber?
In his days, everyone was fit.
No, I tell you why. Because Lamashal, let me tell you again. Let me give you a mashal. It says that the boy should go to the. Both are fit. The boy should go to the father. That says in Shulchan clearly. The Noda Yehuda says it. No Bezdin gives the child to the father unless he's remarried. Now they used to, for 30 years or 40 years ago, they used to, I was told. They saw it was a disaster. Give the child to the father, there's no mother at home, it's a disaster. There's no wife at home, there's no lady at home. The children come home from school. Yes, it is true. Let's be practical. The mother without a father for the child who comes home and there's a mother there. But I'll give you a mashal. So even the Ashkenazim, they've held that a child has to be by the father of Torah, father should learn with him, influence the boy, but he's not married, they stopped doing it because they saw it was a disaster. So the Sfardim also, they see, a child is not an object. The child, we have to look what's best for the benefit of this child.
So it could take him some time to have his children back if he has to get married.
Yeah.
It takes him a year to get married.
But my question is...
First thing is, don't get divorced. Don't get divorced.
My question is, from a point of view of Halacha,
Let me just add to this. You know what I tell people when they come, they want to get divorced? I say to them, you would do anything for the child. I've watched people sit when the child gets chemotherapy, I watch, unfortunately one of my children needed, from parents would sit at the bed days, and they're not from people or the goyish, or the child will be in the hospital, who cared, no one was there. We'd do anything with the child. A child will survive chemotherapy. You know what a child doesn't survive? A divorce of the parents. I always tell this to parents. You're so worried about your child, you are doing you have to tell yourself, because of your, you don't want to make peace with the situation, you're wrecking your child.
So then what do you say? You wait till they're 18, you wait till they're 25?
You know what? You make peace with the situation.
Make peace.
I always tell people, Mudir she made peace with his wife. She poisoned him. She killed him. Do you know why he made peace with her? He was the only lady in the world.
It's true.
So you can make peace. You can make peace with everything. Once you decide this is it, you make peace. Okay. Well, you asked something?
Yes, so
killed
I
me.
asked, my question is authority.
Move on.
What gives them the authority not to go by the Mechaber?
I don't know. Could be, there's such a thing, in Halacha it's such a thing, they saw it doesn't work well. Just doesn't work well. Not always, but especially, I don't know how, not always what should be, it doesn't work. In many things in divorce cases, we see things change. We saw it doesn't work. It doesn't work well. Today, it's not always better the mother has. Mothers work. Used to be mothers didn't work so much. Today, women work, and who says it's always good to give their mother night already? You know what I mean? Okay. So let's move on. It says, if Bezdin has to ask, see, one of the things that they had a hard time is they have to ask a Bezdin Agudel, that is sent it by mail, have to send a shliach. It costed a lot of money, has to get there. Today, that's not the problem. You could call any Bezdin, if they are good Bezdin. I never like to give a psak in anything Torah unless I speak to other Butadinim. It's always good to hear other opinion, who deal with it a lot, how they look at it. But those days, there was a whole, it didn't have internet, email and 2 minutes, and 3 seconds. It was like the whole thing it was. Both have to pay the schar. Mechaber says in a minute that you can't ask, people always ask me this, if I sue and I win, does he have to pay the legal fees? Because in other countries it works that way. In England, if you sue and you win, the guy pays you. If you sue and lose, you have to pay his legal fees. That's why, in Goyish court. Here, I could sue you even though I had nothing to sue you for. And you have to spend who knows how much, it's too bad. We have, the lawyers are corrupt over here.
The court can make it pay.
They can, but it's not standard practice.
It's not standard.
It's not standard, but they could if it's really.
Yeah. They can make you
Really
pay.
really
That can be part of the.
They can force you to pay those types of things.
Yeah.
Okay? So me...
A person could make you pay, lose you pay? I know a person that did it to someone.
What? The fees?
You don't know,
We didn't turn, we had essentials.
one detail people leave out, the whole story changes.
Maybe it was part of the original.
Unless it says, there was, I've seen someone come to me and I told him he was spending money, an expert, there was a told about RCC many years ago. I told him, you're not going to get the money back. He said, why am I not get the money back? It says we're going to go to RCC and if whoever violated the contract has to pay the other one. I told him, it's a smachta, you didn't write the contract right. No, his rabbi said. He paid $80,000, money. Got a lawyer to come testify, and he got this guy to come testify. He thought didn't get one penny. Because it does say many people write contract, but it wasn't written well. If you write it well, and you write into the one who loses has to pay, and they have to pay. That's they're writing the contract. It has to done. People write it in the contract, so it's done legally. Then you're right. Okay. So he was busy telling me that he's going to sue now the lawyer and the rabbi. The rabbi he could really sue. That's the truth.
Does the rabbi let him to believe that he was?
Yeah, the rabbi does not know Cheshmish, but let him to believe that he could just keep on. Yeah, because the rabbi, well, it's not so clear. It's a complicated halacha in Cheshmish, but if an expert says, now, if a guy's not an expert and says his opinion, can you sue him for that? That's a big, what? The best in halacha. You ask a guy and he tells you this is a good coin. He discusses it. Says it's a good coin. Turns out not a good coin. It's a fake. So the question: if he's an expert in the whole you have to look it up. A whole nafkamina.
Expert is responsible.
Expert is known if he takes money. If he doesn't take money, he's not responsible. The non-expert, even though he didn't take money, he's responsible. Don't talk. If you don't know, don't speak. So if you don't know Cheshmish, but don't speak. So such a case, the guy doesn't know Cheshmish, but why do you tell the guy? Win the case, anyways. I think I said the story over. Guy comes to me. I think I said it, but let's say just. Guy says to me like this. Unfortunately, his wife suffers from bipolar. And every second year, every 2 years, like a clock, she has an episode. I've heard this, that certain people have it. It looks like a vest. Vest means like a cycle exactly every second year. And he wanted out of the marriage. He doesn't take the medication, refused to take the medication. When she takes medication, everything's okay, but she doesn't. It's just terrible. So he left the marriage. So the rabbi, his rabbi in the shul, wanted to amend the marriage. They wrote up a contract. He said, he's going back, but if, again, she doesn't take a medication, that's the reason she has another episode, he's getting divorced, but it written inside the contract, they have an apartment. They bought a nice big apartment at Yisrael, he gets the apartment. That was the deal. 2 years later, Nebuch, she had again an episode, and she didn't take medicine. He gets divorced, they go to Din Torah, and he loses the Din Torah. Because it's an asmachta. I mean, it said, if, they would sign, if you're going to get the apartment there, that's, you know what asmachta means? You know what asmachta means? Asmachta means that I make up with you. If this and this is going to happen, that's this case. She signed, if this is going to happen, I'm not going to take the medication. And for that reason, I'm going to have an episode, then my partnership of the apartment I'm giving to you. That's called an asmachta. It means you're gambling, sort of, to say, if this and this can happen, you think to yourself, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to get sick, and I'm probably going to take the medication. I heard people not well, one of the hardest things for them is to take medication, telling them they're not well. But when you signed it, it's not going to happen to me. That's called an asmachta. But there's a way to do it the right way. So then I didn't know about the story. The husband was here vacations, happened in New York, comes here vacationing, and he tells me he lost it in Torah. He's very, very upset. He just got divorced. He wants to go sue the rabbi. The rabbi of his shul who wrote the contract. Right. So I looked it up. See, he can't sue the rabbi because you only could sue if you lost money of his advice. If I did not make money of his advice, I cannot sue. Here, what happened over here? He wanted to make money on the divorce. I mean, she is half of the owner, he's half of the owner, and he made a deal. He wanted to give a get, and to give a get, he's going to get money, make money. Imagine you go to a guy who gives you advice, and he's supposed to know advice which to make money. And he says, if you invest in this and the stock, you're going to make a lot of money. Nothing happened. Nothing. He didn't lose. Did he make?
He had to invest 2 years of his life. No. Another 2 years.
I don't call that 2 years of investment in life. I mean,
2 years of his life.
It wasn't. That's not investment. She did her job. She cooked and cleaned for him, and the house was neat, and they were intimate, and she did her job for 2 years. It wasn't. It's not investment. And she did her. He did his share. The question is, they wanted money, sort of there. So if you don't make money, that's not called. Can't take someone. You understand? You want to make money, didn't make money, but the truth is, a rabbi who gives advice and he doesn't know, he's in halacha you could take him to Torah.
Know that he doesn't
Well, once you ask me, I asked the rabbi, do you know Chashem Ishbit? Sometimes they come to me, start to argue. Did you learn the sugya? But am I going to argue with you? I sit down, learn the sugya, then we'll talk about it. Even by child, when there's a divorce, it's amazing how sometimes rabbis get carried away. They think that they're coming and calling. What? What is it to call?
The rabbi's ignorant. Is he held responsible?
Of course. You're ignorant, so why do you say voicing your opinion? I've seen this more than once. And sometimes, good rabbi of a shul, maybe he knows Archaim, maybe he knows Yeridea. But what are you saying? I had a rabbi saying that someone doesn't have to give a get based on something. I said, I don't know. Let's open the Shulchan Aruch. Where does this say what you just told me? The Shulchan Aruch says the opposite. The guy didn't want to give a get for some silly reasons, and he's ma'agan his wife. Okay. Anyways, it's important to know that not every rabbi knows Chashem Ishbit. Not every rabbi knows Even Ezer. All right. Zug der Mumim echem baladinim by the unit roitz le shloichen am chakim. One of the baladinim or the unit wants to send v'yesh chochem sumach lehem harui ludin shochem le sumach api sharucha yoyse chochem. What happens is a dispute. We want to ask someone in the neighborhood, but there is someone much big time. This was this remote was a real question all the time. It took time to send into. You have someone locally, a big rabbi, but they have someone much further. I just told someone, a Rav showed him inside the Shulchan Aruch. Do you know that at times of of the Rishonim, they never gave a get me'usha, forced a get, unless they asked the Gedolah Adar. Today, just it's an example. There were certain cases or they wouldn't change the haggis of the city unless they asked Gedolah Adar. It was always they wanted to hear the opinion of the great minds of the generation. So here, everyone, the guy who's afraid he's going to lose the Torah is always busy. Let's ask a bigger guy, and instead of not coming, fine, he's got to come to the Torah. He knows that he's wrong, but he wants to. Maybe there's a way I can get away with it. So he's saying, you can't force it. If you don't want to pay for it, you can't force the guy. If you're willing to pay for it, then it's okay. Then Beis Din should. Why not? If you're saying, okay, you know what, it's going to be for my payment. There was a din Torah over here, and why don't I just close it? I don't want to be taped over here. There was but you cannot demand. Both of this musumach go after the bigger one. This is said when there's dispute. We have a business deal. Like I'm involved in a difficult the question: what was the contract? How was the contract written? What did they mean at this time of the contract? Very complicated. But what happens is not. He explains. The Levi says, "I want to go to Beis Din Agudel." Then we can't. We don't listen to the Levi. Avol im Umar Amalva. The one who gave the loan, Neilech LeBeis Din Agudel, Kaufen is a Levi, ve'oile imoy. The Malva gave a loan, and the Levi is claiming that he doesn't have to pay, and there was a condition. He agrees. There's no question he's the Levi, and who's the Malva. But he does. Comes to pay, Leida. It's hard to get people, and he wants to go. The Malva says, "I don't want to go to local Beis Din. I want to go to bigger Beis Din." So whatever this dispute is, the Levi has to follow the Malva to bigger Beis Din. He was mazing him.
But you allowed to, in the middle of the case, are you allowed to switch?
No.
If you see the case, it has to be done in the beginning.
No. Yeah, once you sign, that happens to everyone. Once he sees he's losing the case, all of a sudden it doesn't show up. I had a case like that. The guy, I don't know what he was thinking. Everything was written down today with email. It's amazing today. I don't know. He didn't look up his emails, and he didn't even deny that it is his emails. He didn't want to show up the next time. He was going against them, and finally, I told him we're going to pass him without. He showed up, and there's no such a thing. Once you sign, you can't. I say for the Torahs, the email is one of the best things. But the best of the best is, no matter who you deal with in business, write a written contract. Write a written contract, because I meant what you meant and what was said, and it was.
And when you say contract, let's say it's two people. You just write, and you don't know the legalese or the halacha.
You have to know the legalese. You write down what the deal was. I'm dealing with a case. They never wrote it down, and there's a huge dispute with the question of $700,000. I'm not talking small money, because no contract was written, and they're not sure what the contract was from the beginning. You know what I mean? And everyone tries to remember what their benefit. Isn't it amazing? I remember clearly. It's this way, to my benefit. He says, I remember.
Details down.
Write down. But I advise you to have a lawyer written. Because I've seen contract written that they themselves don't know what they wrote. I was sitting on another din Torah. We asked the guy in English, translate me this in English. What did you mean? They wrote it together. Not he knows exactly what he meant, and I don't know English, but I even.
Not every lawyer helps, right? Sometimes you don't understand. They write it also.
No, but they write it much clearer. But do write. A good lawyer knows how to write well, right? So this was not written clear. It's not going to make such a big difference, the end I see. But bottom line is, it was not written clear. They wrote it themselves. So if you don't, the trick is when you write it, you should write it. It's worth the few dollars that you spend. Saves enormous headaches. Enormous headaches. So you in business?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yet Hashem. Do you know that Chazal say, Smach Zvilim Beitzeisecho, Yisocha Beyulecho. Zvulun was the one who supported Yisocha. So the Welt asked, why was Zvulun the one who supported Yisocha? What was Zvulun's business? It was import-export. The Choyf Yam Yishkin. He says, a farmer, this year you're going to plant that, this year, how much are you going to make already? You're in business, there could be a big bracha. A farmer, this year he's going to plant that, the next year he's going to plant something else. The person is in business, you import, export, there could be a bracha. He could support Torah. That's why the Chassidim, they held very much to go in business. The Yidden were always in business through history. Except now. The joke is that, the wealthy people in my neighborhood, they own the millions, and the children become lawyers and accountants, and they're barely struggling to make a living. So why do you want it, the son, Okay. Let's move on. He says, you are mazik me, or you stole from me. Gazlan, and we know, and the Shiurim says soon, it's not out of the blue I'm saying a Gazlan. Bezdin here sees, there's some truth to it. It's not that he just woke up one morning and says, you broke into my house. There is some truth that he's a Gazlan. Or he was mazik medvun, meaning show Adam, or rulen. It says right away, lenizik. There's Adam, there is Adam, that they saw that he was mazik, that he stole. Or lemalva, there's the avaltana rekunis. Guy says, you broke into my house? And people have asked me this all the time. Someone asked me a while ago, he has, evidence that this guy stole from him. I said, well, what is your evidence? He says, you can't. I say, you go to Torah to tomorrow. I mean, evidence, mechatesa, this doesn't prove anything. It's you have to have, we know that the guy broke in and he claims that he didn't steal, he stole his own thing, he left something behind, something that smells, but just because, I have a ride that you broke into my house, or, Okay. Nowadays, we don't say there's a bezna gudel. It is called a bezna gudel. Aber yesh v'koymois, ba'oisi shesh men chachom gedoyle mimcha rabem, v'koymois shesh nem tamid m'sheni k'moisam, not so great. So he's saying, the bottom line is, according to the Mechaber, you could force a guy, a Malva could force the Loiva to go to Bez in a different city. And a Nizik. You know, the truth is that someone many years ago, a shrewd businessman, someone begged him for a loan. But he knew he was going to have a hard time claiming it for the guy. So he did it differently. You know, since then I've told this to rich people. Guy wants a big loan. You know, he was going to do it. Happened to be a Chabad. He was going to do it for him. But he did it very smart. He said, if you don't pay me, it's not that I have to go to Bezdin. He made already a legal contract. The house become mine. Your house becomes mine. So I don't have to run after. I don't have to go to the court system and sue you and have a headache. And what the kasha he came to me was, it was the time when the real estate was every year was shooting up, but Hitaka didn't pay, and he was taking the house away, and he made money over it. So he wanted to know if it's ribbis. You understand the question? He gave him a loan today, and the due date was a year later. The house was evaluated, let's say $250,000, just for the sake of money in the numbers. And a year later, it went up with $30 or $40,000. You remember from year to year, there was a kufa.
You have written that it's either a loan or it's a sale.
Yeah, but it's written that way. It's written, so then it says there's no ribbis. If you give him a guy and you say, that's what he did. I told him from the beginning to avoid ribbis, to avoid everything, should write into the contract, and there's a legal way to do it. That the house becomes his. Because like this, people give a loan. Why do people don't want to give a loan? It became terrible lately. It used to be my shul, the generation before used to give a lot of loans. Be'ervais, all of a sudden used to give, and they stopped giving. People stopped paying. But if you put a lien on the property, and a lien where you don't have to have a headache to claim it.
So was that ribbis? Like he wrote?
No, it's not ribbis. It says Shiurim, it's not ribbis. But if you do that,
Because he wrote it the right way, or
he did write it the right way.
So it could be written.
Well, he wrote it that if you don't pay me, it's machshav mine.
So it could be written.
You don't write it that you sell the property and then you pay.
I don't know how to do it legally, how he done. He did it with a lawyer too. He was not going to play with $250,000, you know what I mean?
A lot of people on your side of town are charging interest.
Well, you have to have a heteriska. Yeah.
They're still charging for it.
Yeah, heteriska.
Not still giving
They're not
loans.
Uh,
just giving away loans anymore.
It stopped, unfortunately, because people stopped. The reason it stopped because people stopped paying. And I heard this from a lot before the Nifter. A lot of was a wealthy guy in my shul who gave a lot of money loans. He stopped, And then if I do take away his property, they scream at me. You kicked him out of his house. I told him I will give you a letter that you're allowed to take money and kick people out of the house. Because you gave him a loan that you stopped. He'd rather not do it, not give loans. That's what people think. But the truth is that, so what? You gave a loan, take away the house. It's unfortunately, when people take a loan, they don't realize the obligation they have to pay back. That's the unfortunate part. It's very easy to take a loan, but it's very difficult to pay back. That's the unfortunate. Okay, Yesh, Latvei Edim Raya, he says, Neri lebezna shabiri shesh mamish betenoisov. Again, he repeats himself the Ramah. Only if he sees there is something, other we're not going to make you, travel so far to bezna gudel. You don't force anyone to go. Just because he claims, I want to go. There's one opinion that says, anyone who wants to go to bezna gudel could demand, even though he's the nitva. Now the tveya, he says, B'cholze Medina, says the Rav, kvar nahagi bizman anzeh, shekozman sheyesh bezdin be'ir, and ucha yucha leke chaver sherichim be'bezdin achar. Now this is a big machlokes. Some say that Yasha was asked, now I'm always told you that we don't have a bezdin in the city. RCC is a bezdin, it's a business. The cases they like to take, and they don't like them, and they don't take, and it's a business. So he was asked, someone asked him, and I think it's written in Tshuva, he said, Legaba dis halacha, if you could go to them, it's called the bezdin. But if you want to go to them, and it's not worth it for you to go to them, or, Then, but this he held, you understand, that is called. Once that you could go to a bezdin in the city, you can't force another guy to go to another bezdin. You follow what I'm saying?
Even if it's not a Beis Din Kavua.
Even though it's not a bezdin kavua. As long as the people who want to sit at the Torah, you can get 3 people to sit, it's called that you cannot force a guy to go to another. This is very much the game in New York, they fight about it. And this is one of the big fights in Europe. There was a big din Torah I heard in London and Antwerp about this. So as long as you have in that city 3 people want to sit in the din Torah, you cannot force one of the parties to go.
Because of this Ramah.
This is the Ramah.
I thought you said the guy who's
The minig says the Ramah, but the minig is because this was abused. This was extreme. Whenever a guy was a nitva, he was totally abused. That's what it seems from the minig became that way.
Go to the big Beis Din.
Yeah, I want to go to the big bezdin. I want to go to the Torah. I'm a from guy, but I want to go to the big ones. And really, he doesn't want to go. He knows that's going to be a headache, and he knows this, and he knows that.
who's claiming the money can go to the big guy.
But minig is not that way. The minig is now that as long as this city, this is an important thing. Right now, there's a bezdin, I don't want to say the name, is going to give out a sieve against someone who claims he wants to go to New York, he wants to go to Etzisol, he doesn't want to go to the Torah. So they're going to give out a sieve against him. I mean, it's very clear that he's playing games. He's playing
What happens in this town when you give surveys like,
nothing. The only time it helps certain people where they have pressure, certain places, very rare does it help. They should put in the chayrim. They should really put a guy into chayrim. But it helps that he's embarrassed and, put pressure. People know that. But really, does help once in a while. Other time, in New York, it doesn't help anymore. Borough Park, you go for 1 million, you go to another million. Someone told me in Crown Heights, it doesn't help anymore. The best in Crown Heights used to give sirup, and they told me it's worthless. Someone asked her off and told me that. But unfortunately, we don't put people in chayrim. They should put people in chayrim.
the kids go out, or do the kids have to, they throw the kids out of school? Or is it terrible?
Well, the truth is, the Elchonon says yes, you throw the children out of school. The story of this duwek. The story of New York duwek. So you know the story about Baltimore. So what happened? You know about the story duwek? There's a guy duwek who massed a bunch of people. He did. Well, this was a different story. Each kehillah has their. So in New York, he was a duwek, a Sephardi. He went to yeshiva, unfortunately, and he got a lot of people into trouble. He frauded the bank $50 million, and he told the feds that I'll help you catch a lot of fish. Maybe they'll make his sitting in jail less. It was a horrible story. So his wife moved away. He went to live in Baltimore, and there was a big fight. They didn't want to let the children come into school. The guy's a Mossa. So finally, they told me, Shmuel Kamenetsky said, they have to let the children to school. So a few balabata in my community came, chutzpah, Shmuel is, what a... So the Elchonon, it says, you put a guy into chayrim, the Mechaber says that you don't let the children come into school, the Mechaber says, and you don't let the wife come to shul, and so that's what the Mechaber says. And the Ramah, I think the Ramah, the Taz, and the Gun says, what are the children chayta? But even without that, that only helps because we want to put pressure on the father. He couldn't care less, this guy. His wife separated from him. It's not that she's married to him. She went to Baltimore because she wants to get out of the marriage. That's not gonna. What do you want? Let's say the guy's divorced, and they put him to chayrim. I'm not gonna let the children come into school. It's not gonna help. His wife has the children. You understand? That was part of the chayrim, is that they put pressure on him. He couldn't. This guy doesn't care anymore. His wife ran away, and she wants to get divorced. Whatever. She moved to Baltimore, so that's why the children are in school. In Toronto, they did such a thing. In Toronto, there was a guy not paying his loans. And he built himself this huge house, and they couldn't go to court because it wasn't the most kosher money, So the Shlomo Miller is a big place there, and he got all the schools, including Chabad, to agree they're not going to take his children to school.
That's Sephardi or Ashkenazi?
No, he was Ashkenazi.
I feel like anyone.
He was an Ashkenazi in pay. So, they're not taking children to school. No problem. He went to Chabad school in Toronto, right? And he told me. Went to Chabad school. No, I'm not taking your children to school. And all of a sudden, he paid up. That worked. Yeah, so when he lets children wander on the streets,
It works.
it works. It does work.
Transfer the little,
What do you say?
more.
No, they could do the same thing here. That's not true.
There's no central Jewish
Where?
here in LA.
That's not true. If you just I've worked with one of the schools or something with the parent. That's not true. If you get up, you get a maval. If I have a case, I would call the Chabad schools. They would respect it. They would respect it.
So why don't you start?
Rabbi Tauber for president.
Oh.
Oh wait.
There was a Syrian, a guy who didn't want to give a get, and I don't think he was able to get a lead in any shul
Yeah, but he moved away. What did it help? What did it help? He moved away. So it didn't help anything, the Siddhav.
He didn't force his get.
Yeah, but you see, it doesn't help nowadays. He just moved away.
He wasn't able to go to any shul in the city.
Yeah, but he went to shuls, but he came frustrated. He moved away. He lives now in Vegas. Yeah,
If something other people think twice, it has an effect on other people.
yeah, it has effect on other people. It does have an effect, but you see, I want to explain to you something. When a person is an action, when a person is stubborn, what is the question?
So I'm just trying to learn the word siruv.
Word siruv? Word siruv means just that he doesn't. The word siruv is in a make word that he doesn't want to do. Ein mesarvan legudel. Doesn't want to, refuses to come. The truth is, in Europe they used to put people into chayrim.
It's harder to move, so it worked.
It worked. So
So in Vegas, they could do the same thing.
Vegas, who's in Vegas?
No, I'm saying he's in.
Well, who's in
I
Vegas?
actually saw him in a Chabad shul, and I told the shliach there, and the shliach didn't know.
Okay, so who's that?
Now he knows.
So he's not going to get it. So he's going to,
Go somewhere else.
See, but he wouldn't have that pressure. So he's not going to, he doesn't have that pressure anymore. It's not going to give him a lead. No, he's not going to. Here he was embarrassed. He was running and people wouldn't give him, and he looked at him. There's Koma Minyan Yid. How many people live there? And a Chabad Minyan there, 90% of them don't even keep Shabbos. No? I mean, he's not embarrassed of this guy who doesn't keep Shabbos, who doesn't even know what a get is all about. He was embarrassed. Here was the Heimische people. He went to yeshiva and he's from, and he was embarrassed not giving a get. But in Las Vegas, but from these people who have tattoos on the arms are not giving a get. I mean, he doesn't take pressure on him.
When do you decide you don't want to go to a based in London as 3 bucket in the wood? So, how do you decide if someone doesn't want to go to...
If there are 3 bati, he has to choose. He wants to go to one. If I call you to Din Torah, I live in London with you, you have to decide which bezin. You have a right to, the nitva has a right to decide which bezin to go to. Or you have to decide, you choose one, I'll choose one, Dayan, the 2 of the Dayanim will choose. But if you want to go to a bezin, the nitva has a right to say, I want to go to this bezin.
Even if it's not, doesn't fit, like if you're a Gaddafi guy, you're not going to the Federation.
Federation is what? I don't know the
It's more of a, Dayanim.
I don't know, yeah, but what is the Federation? Modern Orthodox?
No, yeah, it's a mix between, it's like London Basin is all the way to the Dayanim.
Bottom line is, are they Tamidei Chachamim?
Yeah, they all are, but Gaddafi people won't go to that basin.
So that's so too bad. The Nitva has a right to go to the other one, the Federation, you said. So if they know how to learn, just because they don't wear a hat the way you like it, and they wear or he doesn't wear a hat, or he wears a kippah saruga, so what? What? I don't hear what? So, yeah, doesn't have a, so what? Doesn't have a beard, wears a kippah saruga, and he plays the guitar, so what? That's childish, and we became so childish. Like it's got to fit the mold. You know what I mean? As long as the Talmidei Chachamim, they know what they're doing. The little bit I understand that in London, I don't know. Maybe I'm misquoting, but as someone explained to me a few weeks ago, is that it was not the Kadassia, it was the one who's fighting sex abuse.
Yeah.
Right. To me, this means ridiculous. It's the non-from who are the ones who are exposing, very strange to me. That's very strange. And they're fighting it, right? The Kadassia. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Where are we up to over here? He could wait. He could tell him, I need days to get a dayan. You see, leider, today, one of our big problems is that it schleps and schleps and schleps. In halacha is, you have 3 days to choose, that's it. If not, you lost the right to choose, and you have to go to the local bezdin. And else we put you into chayrim. Today, you know, I'm dealing with someone doesn't want to get another story, but from the more modern Orthodox community. So I spoke to the ones who help the gunas, and they want to make sure that they shouldn't have any a loophole because the guy shouldn't claim, you know, even though it's nonsense. But he says the experience shows that if we don't do everything, cover every corner, the not learned people are going to cause problems. You know, it's always you know a little bit, you don't know enough. You know, those are the ones who cause problems. So like, you know, there's no such thing. A guy doesn't want to come to Bezdin, give it after 3 days, you put him to chayrim. Well, no, there's no chachmas, schlep, and you know. I mean, unfortunately, that we don't have because we don't have a Bezdin kavua in the city, which is very. It's even the story, even getting people to support the local bakeries, and I tell people to get letter signed. You know, even that is difficult. We don't have a, you know, we don't have a Bezdin kavua. That's the truth. Aber achsanua sheteveya lebnei ir, achsanua teveya lebnei ir, or expesach sanya, imoy biyadu yitchayse. If it's in the same city, the two achsanuim, two guests. You know, this was. I'm going to tell you something, Rabbi say. This was very, very, very important. You know, the good old days, they used to have people would come to a yirid. I say yirid in English, a fair. And it wasn't one day affair. They came in for weeks and they would do business and sell and this. Oh, it was a whole thing. And I have it in Torah. He's going to go one way, I'm going to go the other way. You know, what's going to be now? It wasn't like, you know, all of a sudden, you know, we're coming back to the, you know, he's going to the east, he's going west. So there was a ticket that he has to come immediately to the local bezdin. They even had, it started that Kuna Arbarusas used to make butadinim in every yirid. You know what I'm saying? In every yirid. But they had a big power because if you didn't want to come to Bezdin, they would publicize it and no one would do business with you next time. So if you didn't come to Bezdin, the next time you couldn't sell your goods. They were for hundreds of years, they had a very powerful thing. I don't know. It was Germany. It wasn't. I don't know
No, whatever those.
No, Bohemia and Austria.
Austria, Hungary.
Bohemia and
It was divided the map differently. The countries.
4 big countries, whatever it was in Europe.
Kunar Barutzes.
he had power from Medina.
No, besides that, besides that, they had a power. It worked. It says in the Pesachim. I read their story because no one would. They gave out of the Siddur. They used to, you know, imagine middle of davening, Shabbos in the morning, between Yishtabach and Yitzhar, the Gabbai will call out who didn't pay his loan, the credit. This guy has no credit, hasn't paid his debtors. You know, didn't pay his debt. So Mamela, but that helped. The people knew, don't do business with this guy. They wanted to make a declaration to show that this is, you don't pay your debt. I don't think it helped because who could remember all the names? They was probably hanging on the walls.
You have a website.
Yeah, I think to myself, I didn't tell this to anyone. I always think to myself, they should, just like they have this, I'm not familiar how it works, the websites where they have this, how's it called, not websites.
The
Blog. It's called a blog where they root out the molesters. They should have for people who cheat people out of money. Yeah, the people who borrow. You know, you should have a brav who could write in. This guy doesn't want to come to Bezdin. You should know that this would be great. This would be a great thing for people.
Modified after like a Craigslist standard list. You know, on by cities.
Yeah, but the truth, but you have to make sure. Not everyone could post because, everyone. A guy asked me that he went to a dentist, he's not happy, and he wants to post it on. I don't know where you post these things. I said, why are you not happy? Tell me what exactly. And it was silly things he was saying. Silly things.
You have to vet the posters.
No, but understand, a guy, he went, it's a from dentist, and he wasn't so gentle, and he was late. And I remember, it didn't sound to me, says, he told me, you're Baal Lashon Hara. You don't have to go to him, you don't feel like he's gentle enough, and about this and that, you don't have to go to him, but you can't, but if you know the dentist is not a dentist, he doesn't know what he's doing, then you're allowed to. Okay. Is there such a thing in the blogs? A doctor is a good doctor, not a good doctor?
Yeah. There's reviews and stuff like that, yeah.
There's such a thing. So they should do...
There's websites that you pay that you can look at reviews of doctors. And
Not even paid is free. You go and Yelp, they have everything. Those are for the professionals of like the hardware, the builders and the plumbers.
if I want to hire a painter, I can see how many jobs he's done and what people say about him.
there is such a thing.
Yeah.
But not about...
That's called Andy's list.
But they don't have about guys doesn't pay his loans.
No, because then you're going to run into like technologies.
Are you not right?
But isn't there,
Are you not to write a
isn't
review
there
or
legalese, like...
No, a bad review. Let's say you just didn't, maybe the food tastes good to everyone else, but you didn't taste good. So.
You have to say, I didn't like it. That's not for my taste.
I guess you could ask.
See, because I don't think people get turned off. But if you said a plumber, and you say this plumber didn't do his job.
Yeah, you can do that.
And if it's true, you have to be true. You have to be honest. Then he didn't do his good job. I had a plumber, with all due respect, came to my house, paid him, he didn't do his job. What am I going to take him to the Tauber for a few $100s? I called the next plumber. He did 1, 2, 3. I don't know what he did. He sent his Mexican, and I told him it's not fixed. No, you don't know what you're talking about. Sure. But if there's such a website, I would write. This guy's... why are you allowed to write? Because there's no... If he doesn't do, then there's no reason he should be in business. If it's true. But if you do... What do you say?
Yeah.
I didn't hear. What did you say?
Yeah, a few of them.
What was it?
Yeah, but I'm saying it makes you allowed to if it's the truth. You know what I mean? You have to be very honest with yourself.
If you're not honest, the guy can appeal it, and they can remove it if they want.
Yeah, but I'm saying, governing yourself, you have to be very honest. The guy didn't do his job. Plumber came and he fixed, and he didn't do his job. But just because he was not so nice, and didn't greet you so nice, and he didn't wash. I would have silly things people out. Yeah, didn't take his shoes off, right? Or something like that.
It used to be when a lot more firms controlled the diamond industry in New York, they had a committee. There was a system over a trade, whatever. You went to the committee, whatever they possibly moved it. If you didn't listen to them, you were finished in the business.
No, the business.
No one would do anything with you.
So they had a mafia. Okay.
No. It wasn't a mafia.
It was organized.
It was a...
At industry, you came to them, you had to...
But that lasted about 30, 40 years, then it fell apart.
It fell apart because the industry is not...
No, but far before that, it fell apart. And,
Now, if you
But there was a time that they really controlled the industry.
when
It's
you
true.
give
You
out a
couldn't go to
diamond,
months and you were finished. You couldn't survive in business if you didn't listen.
that's true.
if you give out a diamond right now, they do it by notes. And if they find out somebody stole, that guy's not an order.
That's stuff, no. Oh, that was kind of
That's
trading,
now,
you know.
in LA. That's how it's done now.
Okay, let's just move on. But this is very important. This was a tikkun they made that if two people are coming to do business by Yerid, you must come immediately. You can't push it off. Because you know what happens, you push it off, this guy's going east, this guy going west, and there's no time. You don't even have a right to say, I need time, and I need this, I need that. If you don't show up, they put you in the chayrim. And it worked because the next time you came, you can't come to the Yerid. It was no one do business with you. If a guy coming into town, a peddler, is selling, and he has a dispute, so he could take it out to Bezdin right away. He can't tell me I should go back and There was also a tikkun made. Otherwise, this was made because to facilitate business. Chol keshes bezdin be'ir avim. Ein bezdin sham. Kol echu yichal achri chaveir sherich an bezdin luden imoy. Then if there's no bezdin locally, then they could force each other. Atveya tzurich leirich acha nitve. Im bir acheres abishir atveya bezdin gyoise gudel. Then if there is no bezdin and there's a sichsich where to go, then what's his name? Gyoise gudel. Filo nitve mu. Let me just stop over. So he's saying that means as long as there's no bezdin, then we get into trouble again. So this is a question Rabbi Yashiv wants to say. Once in the city there is people willing to listen to the Din Torah, that's called the bezdin. Even though it's not the official bezdin, there is people who are willing. So you cannot demand I'm going to go to New York and go to Eretz Yisrael. No, even though not. No, the 3 people willing to sit. If without knowing Choshen Mishpat, they will ask. They will do a people willing to sit then. Okay, let's stop over here. This starts a whole new.